समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा?
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Hours after praise for Prime Minister Modi, when Trump described him to be amongst the nicest looking politicians but a killer prime minister, comes Donald Trump's truce or seeming truce with China. Trump is known for the art of the deal, and that's exactly what he seems to have hammered out in the high-stakes meeting that took place between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump in South Korea. Describing and scoring the meeting later, Trump said it was quote-unquote amazing. Asked to rate it on a score of 0 to 10, he said he would rate it to be 12 out of 10. What does this India-China reset mean for the world order, and in particular for India, where the traditional assumption was that America saw India as a countervailing force to the rise of China? I'm Barkha. You're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we look at the larger implications for a changing world order on the deal that has been struck between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. Trump certainly seemed to be the more effusive leader of the two, at least going by body language and the statements that were made. In concrete terms, there was a one-year rare earths deal. There was a significant cut in tariffs on fentanyl, and there was a slashing of tariffs to 47%. Trump went home saying that it was an amazing success, his meeting with Xi Jinping. This just a day after he called Prime Minister Modi a killer prime minister, the nicest looking leader, high praise, talking about a trade deal that has not yet been completed between India and the United States. The MEA today said it was still examining the implications of Trump's decision to sanction Russian oil firms, but that India's decision on where it bought oil would remain guided by consumer interest for its citizens. How do we understand what's happening? An actual long-lasting truce between US and China could topple the apple cart in many, many different ways, in ways that will have implications for India's security interests as well. To discuss this, let me introduce our very distinguished panel of experts. Veteran diplomat Ambassador Gurjit Singh is with us. Welcome to the program, sir. Good to see you. We're also joined by Tavleen Singh, veteran journalist and columnist. Welcome to the program, ma'am. And also joining us is veteran diplomat Ambassador Dilip Sinha. Let's get started with how Trump rated that meeting with Xi Jinping. He gave it a score of 12 out of 10, very Trump-like. Take a look.
But overall, I guess on the scale of from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, I would say the meeting was a 12. Okay, I think it was a 12. I think very importantly, just the whole relationship is very, very important. And I think it was really good.
Well, especially coming on the heels of the successful trip. We're in Malaysia. You signed a peace deal for Cambodia and Thailand. Critical mineral deals with all our allies.
So many successful meetings. Right. And so many meetings great for our country with literally hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars have come into our country over the last 4 days, represented by this meeting. But trillions of dollars, where Toyota is going to build plants, $10 billion worth of plants. And, I could go over so many different companies coming in. They're pouring money into the United States.
All right, so there you have it. Trump being the original practitioner of the art of the deal. I'll start with you, Tavleen, before I bring in the two diplomats. You've always said, let's not take Trump seriously. He doesn't know anything about foreign policy. Well, he seems to be stacking up a reasonable number of deals. He's got some version of a peace pact in Gaza, questionable in sustainability and effectiveness, but nevertheless some sort of deal. He's now got some sort of functional deal, a rare earths deal for 1 year with China. Are you beginning to change your mind about Trump?
No, I still think that he's not really concerned about geopolitics and all that sort of thing. And I still believe that he's just winging it. You know, he's basically he's just turning the whole thing upside down and doing it his way. Why not? But what worries me about this is what happens to us now. That is a serious worry. That should be a serious worry. We've taken so long with our own deal with the Americans, and now suddenly there's a deal with Xi Jinping. All is well between them. And what happens to us? Where do we figure in all this? I sort of get the feeling that India's falling off the map.
Well, India's falling off America's map, maybe, but he just had high praise for Modi just yesterday. He said he was a killer prime minister, tough as nails, nicest looking politician, and we're going to do a trade deal.
Oh, listen to me. Did you hear what he said about the field marshal and the prime minister of Pakistan?
Yes.
I mean, we shouldn't go by, when I say don't take him seriously, it's this kind of thing we shouldn't take seriously. But he's certainly had a huge success in Gaza. And, this is good for the world in a way, because, all the supply chain problems, etc., will sort of come down. But I don't think it's very good for us. Where do we stand in all this? I'm not a diplomat. I'm just a hack. But so, maybe the experts can have a better explanation for what's going on. But I think that we're doing something wrong in the way that we are negotiating. I've been saying this to you from the beginning, and I really believe that you need a team going there that is different to the one that's been negotiating so far.
Let me bring in Ambassador Dilip Sinha and Ambassador Gurjit Singh. Dilip Sinha, I'll start with you. Do you agree with Tavleen that this is a worrying development in terms of the fact that there is now a functionality between Washington and Beijing that in conventional strategic terms might reduce India's relevance, at least strategically, to the United States of America? I think this was widely expected. Everybody felt that Trump would be looking to cut a deal with the Chinese. There are a lot of things we don't know. For example, the rare earths deal is just 1 year. Two, Trump ordered a testing of nuclear arms just before he met Xi Jinping. So there's a lot of contradictions that come with Trump. That said, he is going home with some sort of deal. He is going home with a meeting that he scores 12 out of 10. How concerned should we be here in India? And do you agree with Tavleen that it reflects somewhat worryingly on our capacity to not have been able to close a deal so far? Ambassador Sinha.
Well, it is certainly a matter of concern for us. I don't think we should underestimate the difficulties that we face in our foreign policy. Where you talked about experts and expertise, the diplomacy that I learned was in a different era, and this is a different era now. We are all groping in this Trumpian world. You have a meeting between two leaders and not a word on any global issue. There's no joint statement. In fact, there was no agreement signed. It's only the Chinese readout that talks about some global issues like money laundering and certain other issues like artificial intelligence and pandemics. Trump's statements, both in the aircraft and his social truth post, talk only about the trade deal. Now, here are two world leaders meeting, and they have nothing to talk about except how to reduce tariffs on fentanyl and other things. So this is a different kind of world that we are in, and our diplomacy has to wake up to that we are now living in a world where there is no global order. You have to negotiate bilaterally everything that you are doing. And there are no permanent allies. NATO is in disarray. Our Indo-Pacific, that Quad is in disarray. So we are in a world where we have to deal directly with each country and not worry too much about what that country is doing with the third country. So we have to deal with China. We have to balance our trade with China, insist upon China buying more from us. The same with Russia and with America. With America, what's important, as is clear from Trump's posts, is that America only values, at least Trump only values, what our country is buying from him, agricultural products and energy. And two, are they investing in America in areas that he's interested in? So we have to talk with him on those lines, not on the old WTO, GATT rules, etc. Those are all dead. We have to say how much what we can buy from America, which is of interest to Trump, and if we are in a position to invest in America in certain areas of interest to Trump, yes, by all means, bitcoins perhaps.
Yeah.
We have to negotiate exactly the way Trump wants to negotiate if we want success with him in our negotiations. Otherwise, there are other countries in the world that we can look to for improving our exports and our trade relations.
Before I come to Ambassador Gurjit Singh, you said our diplomacy has to wake up to the fact that things have changed. Do you believe that that has happened? Do you see any shifts in the way we are now doing business with Trump? Or do you think that we might be trapped, in a kind of statecraft of yore?
Well, I am not privy to what is happening in the trade negotiations or in the meetings that took place between our foreign minister and the EAM and the American Secretary of State. But until we get a deal, we cannot possibly say that we have succeeded in negotiating with Trump the way Trump negotiates.
Let me, before I come to you, Ambassador Gurjit Singh, play out what the Foreign Ministry has said. The Foreign Ministry spoke on a range of issues, a 6-month waiver on the Chabahar port. Also on the trade deal, the Foreign Ministry only said we continue to be engaged with the United States of America. And on the particular point of America's sanctions on 2 Russian oil firms, I'm going to play out what Randhir Jaiswal, the Foreign Ministry spokesperson, said and come to you right after that. Take a look.
We are studying the implications of these sanctions. As we have said this before also, our decisions that we take naturally take into account the evolving dynamics that is there in the market, global market. Our position on the larger question of energy sourcing is well known to you. In this endeavor, we are guided by the imperative to secure affordable energy from diverse sources for meeting the energy security requirements and needs of 1.4 billion people.
Ambassador Gurjit Singh, there are 2 views on how India has handled Trump. One is that the somewhat conservative, careful, making sure that the Prime Minister is not placed in the same grouping as him so that he doesn't say anything off script and embarrass India has been the right approach, that other world leaders who have been on shared stages with him have only been embarrassed or bullied. The other is, as Tavleen and Ambassador Sinha seem to suggest, you need a new way. The old way isn't working. Which side of this debate do you weigh in on?
As a good diplomat, I stay in the middle. Now, you see, let us first just look at what you have been saying about Trump. The Trump-Xi deal is essentially on 4 things. China says they will try not to export fentanyl and compounds, in return for which there is a 10% cut on tariffs. That is the only cut. There is no other reduction on tariffs. The 57 to 47 is only on fentanyl, the fentanyl-related issues. The second part is the rare earths. They will allow some exports of rare earths to make sure their supply chains are not disrupted for the next 1 year, in which they can work out a deal. Third, they will buy more soybean. This is critical. Buying American soybean from Trump's constituency. This is the most critical part of the deal.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the details are now emerging. Trump has secured an agreement from China to buy 25 million tons of U.S. soybeans annually, 12 million tons immediately. This is the detail just being released on Fox News moments ago. So I think you're right that, for Trump, this is what he can take back to his soybean farmers. It's domestic politics. And now go ahead.
He also takes back continuity. He said, I will go to Beijing in April, and I will attend the APEC in China, and Xi says he will attend the G20 in the United States. So that means there is a sense of continuity. But Xi made Trump wait in the beginning and at the end, showing him who the vassal is. Protocol-wise, they should both have come out at the same time. Xi came late. Now, you ask me, what does India do? So I think India has very few levers to pull. China could say, we will not give you rare earths. What can we say? We will not give you more Indians? I mean, that is not the same lever. So our leverage is limited. Our human resource in commerce ministry is severely limited. We are trying to negotiate EU and America at the same time and not able to do it. Since Modi went to meet Trump in February, a trade deal looked on the cards and perhaps it was already broadly negotiated. Since then, sanctions on us because of buying Russian oil, Op Sindoor, Pelgam, and laying it on Pakistan. All these have queered the pitch that you can't have a simple trade deal without having a wider understanding. So I think now India is playing it much more cautiously. I think earlier we would have been ready to buy soybean for making ethanol. We would have been ready to buy some milk. But I think now these issues are curtailing the conclusion of the trade deal. So I don't think diplomacy has changed. I think the issues have changed. And therefore, we need to look at guiding our own interests. Number one, forgetting about permanent friends, permanent enemies. Just go with your interest. If it is not in your interest, don't sign it.
So I think the operative part is what are the levers that we have to pull? And if you're saying there are few levers to pull, let me bring in Tavleen. It isn't just about the way we conduct diplomacy. It's also about real world politics changing. One of the reasons there was a Quad, or one of the reasons there was an Indo-Pacific strategy, is because traditionally the Americans looked towards India to balance the power dynamics in this region. If Trump is going to cut his own deal with the Chinese, and I take Ambassador Gurjit Singh's point, the Chinese are very opaque. They'll play the long game. He points out that Xi Jinping was nowhere as effusive as Trump has been in his articulation. So we don't know. But from Trump's point of view, he has a deal to take back to his voters. And that's what counts. And that's the soybean deal. Way more important than even the rare earth deal. I mean, what are India's options? India can't really get in the middle of this.
Why can't India buy more American things? We need to actually give him something. We don't need to, we can't afford to, invest billions in America like some other countries can, but we can buy more American stuff. Indians love American goods. So, what does it matter whether, they sell or not? Let's get more American cars, more American weapons, Let's give him something that he would consider that India is a factor. In Pakistan, what is it? It's some sort of deal on crypto with the Sharifs, and the Trumps. But we don't seem to be getting anywhere because we don't offer anything that he could say, look, India is doing this. We know that he just bullied us over Russian oil, because if Russian oil was the factor, then, China buys much more than we do. And suddenly they're best pals. And, I don't know whether you noticed the body language in the meeting. He was actually, I've never seen him so serious. He was sitting there, he didn't ask for any gold crowns or anything like that.
Yeah.
He just sat through like a good boy in class. And Xi Jinping was controlling the whole show and saying, we're the two biggest economies in the world. And, obviously there will be problems. So, we're doing something wrong. I keep saying this. I think that you need a new team to negotiate. You need a new idea. Modi seems to have been the person to have first noticed that Trump liked flattery. Do you remember that big tamasha in Ahmedabad in his first term? And, the big howdy Trump, howdy Modi sort of thing. Now, this time, Modi doesn't seem to be, I don't know. There seems to be a sort of, break in the friendship, because it was all based on friendship at that point. They were both doing personal diplomacy, right? Now, this time it's a team. But a team that doesn't seem to be doing very well. So I think we need to offer him something. We need to make it clear that, India will buy more American goods, Otherwise, we're just kind of, we're nothing when we don't count.
Is it that dire, according to you, Master Sinha, that India doesn't count? I think, and I want you to also comment on Tavleen's perception and also Ambassador Gurjit Singh's perception that the levers of power with the Chinese, that Trump, maybe needed this more than the Chinese, and he acted that way, that he wasn't his usual sort of goofy self, he wasn't making silly jokes and so on. Did you see it that way, or did you see it differently? Do you see this as sort of cold-blooded transactionalism that, we don't know where it's actually going to go?
Oh, I think Tavleen has noted very perceptibly that if you look at the body language of the two, and I noticed that also, Xi Jinping doesn't normally smile, but there was a distinct smile on his face. He was much more relaxed. Trump was tense all through, both when they were seated, and as well as when they came out, as what is showing on your screen right now. So that is quite evident that Trump was tense. The other point that Tavleen makes is also very important, that we have to buy more from America. That was the starting point of Trump's complaint against India, that India had a huge surplus against the US. Now, earlier, America was indulgent on us because of the issues like South China Sea and Indo-Pacific and all those big geopolitical issues. These things don't seem to interest Trump. I don't know how much they interest him. But the fact is that if you look at what has happened with China, it is entirely trade. So if America wants to export something, we must, since we do need certain things, let's go and buy those things, even if it means that we're going to use it for something else or re-export it or whatever. But it is important. And on the point that Gurjit made about we not having levers, that's absolutely correct. It's quite clear in this deal that the way Trump has gone to China to meet Xi and in South Korea, that China has levers and it used those levers. And America is desperate to get rare earths. Rare earths is the most important thing that America has. American industry will shut down right now if they stop. If China stops the exports of rare earths. China has consciously built that leverage over the last 10, 15 years. Now, remember in the case of Japan, when Japan faced a problem with China on rare earths, Japan started immediately diversifying its imports of rare earths. And today, Japan has the lowest dependence upon China. I think it's less than 60% or so for its import of rare earths. Whereas we, after Galvan, have actually increased our dependence upon China. Today, we are about 96, 97% of our rare earths come from China. So despite all these evident problems that we face, we do not develop either the independence in our imports or leverages in our exports so that we can be in a strong position to negotiate when it comes to negotiations.
Ambassador Gurjit Singh, you said we must be guided now only by our own interests. My question to you is, where do our interests lie at this point? That is actually, for me, the million-dollar question. The Prime Minister went to Tianjin at the height of tensions between India and the United States of America. Trump sulked, said we've lost India to Russia and China. Here he is sitting with the Chinese, not even talking about China's purchase of Russian oil, right? So nothing that Trump says is an argument is a consistent argument. If we are trying to repair with China, we are also trying to cut a trade deal with the Americans. It's no longer clear how we define our interests in the next few steps. How would you define them?
If the Chinese and the Americans remain rivals and not friends, it is to India's advantage. Correct. In the last 6 months, what you see is them trying to cozy up despite all these threats of sanctions and stuff like that. So what you see now is them reluctantly cozying up and paying attention to each other, which makes our life that much more difficult. So in the last 6 months, if you see, we are trying to reach out to China even on trade, finding it very difficult. They are not amenable to our interests. The Americans have become the same way. So now you have to deal with a new situation where the Indo-Pacific is not enough carrot for either attracting the Americans or making the Chinese annoyed. So we have to find a new way. When it comes to Russian oil, I'm told it was in our interest. But today, if you can trade it off for lower tariffs from the United States, I believe that is in our interest. The Japanese told Trump that we have to buy gas because we have invested in it in Russia. So don't force us to stop. We will stop in 2030 when the contract runs out. Are we able to say that? Doesn't look likely. So the condition today is first point, stop buying Russian oil. And if we do that, you're
actually saying we should accept Trump's condition and stop buying Russian oil, or are you saying we should use the sanctions as the exit, a very natural exit route provided by the Americans? Since Trump has actually sanctioned these two Russian oil firms, we can't buy the oil anyway. So that problem solves itself.
Yes, correct. So that is what Ranveer Jaiswal today said. We are studying the impact. The impact will be this, that you will not be able to buy. So that should take away 25% tariff out of the 50%. Now you have to negotiate the remaining 25% and bring it to 15, 16%. And that is, you do what Dilip and Tavleen have said, buy more. Buy more what? Boeing planes, weapons, shale oil. But all that is fine. It raises the figures, doesn't help Trump. Trump wants the Midwest farmer to benefit from the Indian market. And that is where we have to play the game now.
Can I ask you, though, very directly, are you saying that we should give up this fight we have taken on the issue of Russian oil?
I think the fight is based on pricing, not ideology. And if the discounts become lower, which they are, and then sanctions come in, which makes it difficult for you to buy, there is no ideology in it. It's pure transaction. So you use that lever to get a 25% discount on your tariffs for your exports to the United States. To me, that sounds good transaction.
So Ambassador Sinha and Tavleen, I'll come to you, Ambassador Sinha, first. Do you agree? I mean, it would mean giving up some pride. It would mean giving up some assertion on strategic autonomy. I do agree with Ambassador Gurjit Singh that we've been quite consistent in saying that for us, it's about where we get the best deal for our people. And therefore, it's about pricing. And therefore, there is a way now, actually, ironically, with the sanctions on these two big Russian oil firms, there is a way to extricate yourself without having to make it a fight. Do you agree that this is now necessary if this relationship is still to be salvaged? The other way to look at it is this relationship cannot be salvaged.
Well, the American policy is still not very clear to me. Is our buying Russian oil that critical? Or is Trump more keen on we buying soya or corn or something else of the agricultural products? Now, if we can get away by buying more of the things that we need, like Boeing aircraft, some defense equipment, perhaps corn, certainly we can do with. If that solves the problem, by all means, we can go ahead without reducing our import of Russian oil. But if Russian oil comes under sanctions, and two companies have come under sanctions, then of course that route is closed to us, because no Indian company is going to import oil, certainly not Ambani's, from these two companies and then face sanctions in the US. So that itself, that becomes a decision taken already for us. But I think what's most important is for us to go and look at Trump's constituency and see how we can satisfy that constituency.
But how can we? The one public statement that the Prime Minister has made on this issue, if I'm not wrong, probably the only one other than what he said on the floor of the House, is that there are red lines on dairy and agriculture and fishing. He didn't use the phrase Trump tariffs, but he said, even if I have to pay a price for it, I'm ready. But these red lines will not be compromised. So how are we in any position? No government has done it thus far, Ambassador Sinha, to open up agriculture, to open up, the sectors that have traditionally remained closed. It would be political suicide potentially for any government here. Okay, Tavleen isn't agreeing with me, but I'm saying that's the stated, that's been the conventional assumptions. Ambassador Sinha, you want to respond quickly and then I'll come to Tavleen?
Yes, very quickly. We have $300 billion worth of rice exports to the US. They are grown by our farmers. We have at least $2 billion worth of shrimps that we export to the US. They are also by our farmers. What about them? They will lose out. So we have to balance these interests and see how best we can do that. And this has to be done by our negotiators, taking into account not international rules of GATT, etc. Those are dead. Now we have to look at pure statistics and see which is the best way forward.
So, Tavleen, before you respond, one of our audience members says, what makes the seasoned ambassadors and experts think Trump will lift sanctions once India stops buying Russian oil? After Russian oil, Trump will find other areas to economically coerce India to open up agriculture and dairy. Now, if that's where the fight is, flattery isn't going to get us out of this. Tavleen.
Okay, listen, I don't understand who are we protecting? The average Indian farmer has nothing to sell in the market. It is I think 10% of the farmers. My brother is a farmer, right? He's considered one of the rich farmers who can produce to sell beyond, to go to the market with it. Stop protecting these guys. They're not that vulnerable. Let them compete. Let them compete. If we can sell shrimps, we should be able to, to sell other produce. We should give the farmers the wherewithal, the infrastructure, the cold chains, that I keep saying that. I've said it before. There's the cold storage chains, etc., need to come in. It's a very complicated thing, but I don't see any policy here. On the one hand, you have the Prime Minister going on about Swadeshi, Swadeshi. Okay, if you're going to say Swadeshi, then, we'll stew in your own Swadeshi then. Why should anyone be interested in you?
But politically, I take you back to the farmers' agitation. The only time, or maybe one of two times, I think the other time was land acquisition bill. The second time that Modi has taken back something that he's proposed is because of the farmers' agitation. Then too, there was this debate, how many farmers does it really impact? These are the Punjab and Haryana farmers holding other farmers to ransom. But it was politically seen to be costly by the Modi government.
Those bills were not in the eyes of the farmers. They were helping Adani rather than the farmers. There was there was nothing in those bills that was new. My brother can sell his produce wherever he wants to. So, what were they doing? What were those bills doing? They didn't open up anything. So, and I actually think that the Indian farmer can compete and would compete very well. Our dairy industry is huge. And, Amul is competing here with what's the Nescafe guys, Nestle. And, they're competing very well. So what are we worried about? I don't see any clear policy, I really don't. And that I think is the most worrying thing of all. Where do we want to go? And what is our road to get there? I think that we could, let in American farm goods. How is it going to do? How many people are going to buy it? We sell the same thing cheaper. So I don't see what you're protecting.
You do have the example of cheap Chinese goods having destroyed any number of small businesses in India. Plastic diyas instead of earthen diyas, or sort of synthetic cheap cloth instead of handloom saris. I can give many examples.
Yes,
we have seen the impact of that predatory pricing and the Chinese domination of Indian markets.
Because we still haven't got over our socialist hang-up. So when
what is socialist for not wanting Chinese Chinese goods?
We want little businesses. We don't want the big businesses to flourish. The Chinese have huge corporations. They may be, controlled by a thing, but we haven't allowed that to happen. So again, it's a matter of policy. While we were making clay toys, they were making toys for America. We've been very confused. And I actually, one of the reasons why it was a Modi Bhakt at one point was I just hoped that Modi would shake off all this nonsense and, take a new road. And he hasn't. We're still clinging to the whole thing. And by the way, on the land acquisition thing, he made a big mistake. He was right. He just got scared and backed off. So, I hope now that there's a more consistent policy and that we stop worrying about whether we can compete or not. I think we can.
Okay, let me get the diplomats to respond to this. Ambassador Gurjit, I'll start with you. I could be wrong, but I don't see the government already on the somewhat political defensive over the way Trump has spoken about Operation Sindoor, the role he has attributed to himself for the ceasefire or the halt in hostilities with Pakistan, being mocked and taunted by Rahul Gandhi. It may mean nothing to the BJP, but it adds to the political noise. Do you see the government opening up dairy and agriculture?
Yes, but in a limited way. For instance, soya bean can be imported only to make ethanol. Corn can be imported, even if it is GM corn, only to be used as animal feed. And milk cannot be imported, but milk products can be imported, which don't impact the bottom line of Amul or milk suppliers. So there are ways of doing it. And as Dilip pointed out, when Prime Minister said, I will look after the people of India, he mentioned fishermen. Fishermen are your shrimp farmers. And then there are your rice farmers. There are your mango and fruit vendors, farmers. All this goes to the United States and is suffering 50% tariff. If that tariff comes down, our exports will be restored, and that will look after the organized farming sector in India, whereas the structured imports will not necessarily trouble the Indian soybean farmer or the Indian corn farmer or the Indian amuls.
Let me give the last word to you, Ambassador Sinha. Do you think that this might be the direction in which the negotiations have been moving? And if so, we don't know what the holdup is. Piyush Goyal recently said, we can't negotiate with a gun held to our head. It seems to be one step forward, two steps back between India and US almost every day. It's also worth noting that Trump spoke about China using the G2 reference. If this is going to be a G2 world with US and China being the two great powers, that does limit India's strategic impact or influence, at least vis-a-vis the United States of America. So closing words to you.
Well, on trade, I think as Gurjit correctly pointed out, now that we do not have to worry about MFN and all the GATT rules of WTO, we can negotiate purely bilaterally with the US with quantitative restrictions on how we import what, essentially to satisfy the Trump lobby over there, and at the same time protecting our interests, because we will not have to extend those same facilities as we had to under GATT rules to other countries. So we can, this has happened in the past also when we used to use quantitative restrictions to ensure that our market was not destroyed, and yet we imported certain things. So that's certainly possible. Now on the G2 business, yes, the world is moving towards G2, but then it is too complex right now for us to worry about whether the G2 will get together or they will be rivals. We have Trump has just said he's going to start nuclear testing. Russia has just tested this nuclear-powered cruise missile, which will be a game changer if it's actually as accurate as it is what he's saying, because he's been saying a lot of things about this. So on this, I don't think we should worry too much about whether America and China are getting together. We have to look at our interests, and we must always remember that there are other countries apart from the big three. One thing that we have found in the last few years is that the big three are behaving actually like rogue states. All three of them, China, Russia, and America. And here we have to start making common cause with countries that are slightly more in the other category, with whom we can make common cause, and both in terms of trade and in terms of strategic interests, see if we can ensure that our interests are also protected.
Well, that's quite a note to end on. China, Russia, and America behaving like rogue states. This is the brave new world that at least Aldous Huxley could not have predicted. It is a Trumpian world to a large extent, but again, as has been pointed out, the power dynamics were interesting to see. We see Trump, we access Trump in a more open way than we're able to understand the Chinese. But as has been pointed out, it looked like Trump was the quote-unquote schoolboy with Xi Jinping being the principal. We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sinha, Ambassador Gurjit Singh, and Tavleen Singh. Always a pleasure. Thank you to our audience. See you tomorrow. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.